Everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays the Binding of Isaac Afterbirth. Plus, we're doing the Hyrule challenge today. It's Hyrule, but they can't say that for copyright reasons. Or Nintendo will go to Edmund's house and confiscate all of his stuff. You know, one thing I'd never tried, I wanted to see if we could boomerang freeze a bomb. I really doubt it. But otherwise, like, I mean, this one goes to Mega Satan, so anything could happen. But realistically, like, the fact that we start with Mom's Knife means we're in a real good spot. We'll try to, I mean, it's going to be like a normal length run, which is nice. And to be honest, I'm looking at the other ones that come up. Like, the Brains Challenge is potentially tough. And then the Onun's Streak Challenge is an actually, like, considered perhaps one of the most difficult challenges in the game. Followed by the Guardian, which I don't remember, but I'm sure it is. Oh, the Guardian is horrible! Isn't that the one where my best friend takes damage? And you have to protect it, but literally on some rooms you just literally can't. And I don't mean like literally like in the sense that is like the opposite of the actual meaning of the word. You know what I mean, like literally. Anyway, all I'm saying is, I think we've gotten through the, perhaps, dare I suggest, without it being tantamount to a sin in entertainment, we've gotten through the more boring challenges. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay, cannot freeze a bomb. Not that that would ever be relevant, but we've gotten through the more boring challenges and we're into the more interesting ones. So I think for this one, you enjoy it while it lasts. I have to admit, you know, it's been a long time since I played a Zelda game. I was thinking about that because I was thinking of things to say, like when I started this run. Give me a little bit of a liftoff point, conversationally speaking. Zelda might be the series that I like respect the most, that I've played the least. Now, that doesn't mean I've played Zero. As a kid, I played Link's Awakening. I played Ocarina of Time, never beat it. Did not play Majora's Mask. Too busy playing, you know, NFL Quarterback Club 99. Who made the right decision there? Obviously me. Anyway, you know, kids like what they like, right? Don't hold it against me. I wasn't an enlightened child at the time, I suppose. And then I skipped the whole GameCube era. It was the first Nintendo console I did not own since the NES, which came out before I was even born. I think. It's close, anyway. But beyond this, you know, you're dealing with a guy who was a neophyte for a while. That's right, I also did not play Melee, which is really, to be honest, if I could go back in time and tell my younger self to, like, play something productively to make my life easier as an adult, I know it seems like a bizarre sentence in the first place. Oh, swallowed penny, that's right. I was like, what item is giving us money here? I would tell me to go buy a GameCube and get good at Melee. Because when I was in college, I was genuinely pretty good at Super Smash Bros. And 64. We played a bunch of that because we were of the right age for that to be our nostalgic trip. But the enduring legacy of Super Smash Bros. Has been Melee. So I kind of missed out on being able to participate beyond that point. Anyway. On the Wii, I did play and beat Twilight Princess, and I went, hey, Zelda's really good. And then I went back and I actually bought a physical Super Nintendo. I have never beaten A Link to the Past, but I say that with a caveat, because I've beaten everything up to the final fight, and then the game literally corrupted the, like, save chip, and I lost my progress. And I said, you know what? I beat the game. And if you're like, you're gonna take away some of my nerd cred, because, like, well, you haven't beaten the game. It wasn't like I was gonna give up fighting, you know, Ganon. I'm not just saying it for nerd cred to begin with. I'm just saying I've seen 99.9% of A Link to the Past. Beautiful game. One of my favorite games of all time. I just didn't feel like putting in another, you know, 18 hours to get back to the boss fight. Instead, I just went, you know what? Good enough. And I stand by that opinion to this day. And then I played A Link Between Worlds, but I only beat like half of it. It's one of those, you know, I don't like always doing just adult-splain. But people, you know, they say things like, you know, I'll say something like, I haven't played the Zeldas, like many of the Zelda games. The games that, you know, have been described as Zelda-ish. Where am I going with this? And then someone will say, well, they recently came out with a remastered version of Majora's Mask on the Switch or the 3DS. You should really check it out. And it's like, well, if I could get in my free time capsule and do so, I might consider it. I'm going to put that on the retirement checklist. And even if I only get to it in, I don't know, 2045 or something like that, hopefully, I'll still get to it, you know? I'll work down the list. It'll give me something to do during retirement. I'll play all the Zeldas, fight the robots that have taken over our society, and so on and so forth. You know, everybody's got to have a hobby. But it's true, you know, it's kind of audacious. Like, if somebody suggests, like, hey, you should listen to this song. It's good. You're like, you know, I'm probably still not going to do it. But at the same time, that's like a 5-minute investment in all likelihood, unless you're a big fan of Dream Theater or something like that. And that's okay too, but you know, I'm gonna have to budget that in for the week. If you're like, hey, you should play this video game, that's like a 35-hour investment. You can't just suggest that willy-nilly, like, yeah, you should play and beat Majora's Mask. Then we can have a 5-minute conversation about the full work week that you spent beating that Zelda game for the first time. I'm just saying it's tough, okay? It's like one of those things where if you miss your window as a kid, it's kind of hard to get back to it as an adult. Not because I'm particularly busy, but just because, you know, I feel like when you reach roughly this age in your life gets very full. Not just of work, of course, which is very self-serving. Everybody on earth, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy I couldn't possibly make time to try kefir, you know? Just kidding. I did it last week. I will try this. I don't know if it's actually going to be worth much. I don't really care about that. We'll move along. But you know, you're kind of like, I have enough things vying for my time. And I think that's true for most adults in the same age range. So, you know, it's not even that I would like to play the Zelda games. It's like I would have liked to have played the Zelda games when I was younger and I had more time. Not younger so I could appreciate them, but younger so that I could dedicate the time necessary to be able to have conversations about them today and not be made fun of as a fake gamer. Instead, you know, 9 to 16-year-old NL played a lot of sports video games, all right? And you know, if I could go back in time, take myself by the shoulders and be like, do you really need All-Star Baseball 2001 and World Series Baseball 2003? Maybe you'd be better off picking up like Panzer Dragoon Orta or Suikoden 2 or something like that. Well, I did play and beat Panzer Dragoon Orta. Actually, in a bizarre twist of fate, thank you, Brain, that is how I got World Series Baseball 2003. I finished my 9th grade and I went, you know what? I'm going to reward myself, and it's summer vacation. What should I do? Get a job! Shut up, Mom. What I'm going to do is buy myself a video game because I got free time. Well, I hear this Panzer Dragoon Orta game is really good. Picked it up, played it, loved it, and then it was 4 hours later. And I was like, wait a minute, that's it? So I went back to the store and I bought World Series Baseball 2003 because I was like, now that's a game you could play endlessly. But it's really just by luck. It's luck, and a friend of mine from like my middle school and high school days is the reason I ended up playing like some story-based games that can even talk about anything. Like, I played Kingdom Hearts when it launched, thanks to him. I borrowed Final Fantasy VII, thanks to him. Beat that game 2 times over. Cried like a baby at the pivotal moment that I'm starting to think you can't spoil anymore because the remake's coming out and maybe people have never heard of it, but even though they probably have. Anyway, the point is, he also, this was not a result of him. This is a result of me, you know, reading on the internet that this game was good like 2 days before it came out. But, you know, one of the few, like, sprawling story-based RPGs that I got into right when it launched was, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I remember reading like a 9.5 out of 10 review, and then I went to Electronics Boutique, and I was like, hey, can I pre-order Knights of the Old Republic? And they're like, well, if you want it, you better pre-order it. And I was like, oh, are there a lot of pre-orders? And the dude's eyes got like, you know, the lady from the Guinness Book of World Records TV show, and her eyes popped out of her skull. They were like that. And I was like, sure, I'll pre-order it. Here's $5. And then I came back the next day and got it. And I was like, Bastila, no! So, like, if you ever want to know an opinion on what is probably a middle-tier 989 sports game from, like, 1997, you know who to talk to. When it comes to a Legend of Zelda game, I wish. Can one of my most embarrassing video game admissions as a child, I had Ocarina of Time. I bought it when it entered the Nintendo Players Club, so it was a $20 game. Like the Sony version of Greatest Hits. Do those still exist? Because that was actually like a godsend as a cash-strapped child. Like, hey, this wonderful game that most of the time is $60, well, it sold enough copies, so now it's 20. Those were the days, man. Now, instead, you gotta wait 3 months and a game's 90% off on Steam. Boo-hoo. Thank you for this bone heart. I hope that I do not need it. But I bought it, and I also bought the Brady Games strategy guide, and I still got stuck at Jabu Jabu's belly. That's right, before Link even enters the Temple of Time and is aged 7 years. Even with the strategy guide, I was like, I know the button changes the water level, but I don't get it. I'm just gonna go back to playing NFL Quarterback Club and doing QB sneaks with John Elway. The AI wasn't built to get around it. I think we do want to go to the shop with 99 cents. Let's do that. And there it is. So that's like literally my most embarrassing video game admission. That and naming PUBG my game of the year for 2017. Amnesia's not that bad here. We're gonna buy many Spirit Hearts, hopefully. Sackhead, very good. Joker, I'll pop it. I know we possibly / probably would get a deal with the devil. Well, possibly is more correct here, but still. Keep throwing mini bombs there. Okay, definitely. Black Candle. Happy Man. Take Nun's Habit, even though I don't necessarily know if we're ever going to get a Spirit Heart to make it work. Or, sorry, a Spacebar item to make it work. Can we get the Mom transformation? I really want to buy Jar of Flies. I would like to get it. Please hit me. Anyway, so that's my video game mindset. It wasn't until like the PS2, you know, original Xbox, I should say, era. Forget Jar of Flies. And by forget Jar of Flies, I mean I'm gonna go take a look. Wasn't until that era I started playing, you know, your single player experiences. But, you know, color me surprised as an adult that the GameCube is well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd say the GameCube is the console from that generation with the most enduring legacy. But what I would say is, like, you know, I don't hear about that many PS2 games being brought up. Even though that and the Xbox were definitely my most played console. I feel like I hear people talking about Melee, and Wind Waker, you know, the later Metroid, well, all the Metroid Primes, I guess. Give me Jar of Flies. And like, what's the other one I'm trying to think of? Oh, like Beautiful Joe, and did Beautiful Joe ever come out on PS2? Beautiful Joe. Originally developed for the GameCube. It was later released on the PlayStation 2. Okay. See, I missed all that. I had aged out of it in one way or another. Or rather, I just didn't have the right console. I almost made some very bad decisions with consoles. With my parents' help, by the way. I want to point that out. First console I ever owned, Super Nintendo. Great choice. Second, not really a console, but just bear with me on this one. A Game Boy. Original Game Boy. Still works to this day. Fantastic piece of hardware. Some of the most classic video games ever released on introduction to portable gaming. Third after that, I had a Sega Game Gear. Decent handheld console. I'm not going to insult it. Full color display, way ahead of the curve. 8 batteries like a son of a gun, though. Like, that console, it probably cost you like $2 an hour just to play it. You know, I think that console basically racked up the kind of electricity bill that dads think leaving the fridge door open for 2 seconds does. You know, where they're like, hey, close the window, the air conditioner's on, you're gonna cost me $1,000. You know, that's what the Game Gear was like. It's like, well, oh, you like Sonic 2, huh? Well, do you like it enough to buy it and then also use 4 AA batteries every single time you boot it up? But anyway, technically, a great console. Following that, N64. Had a wonderful time. PlayStation 1. Another amazing, absolute classic. Still to this day, that, like, gray controller just gives me nostalgia just looking at it. And I don't know why everything was gray plastic back then, but anyway. Then, my parents were like, hey, you know, there's this new virtual reality console out there. You want to give it a try? You may have heard of it. It's called the Nintendo Virtual Boy. I tried it, and, you know, I was dumb. I was like 7. And I was like, this rules! It's totally tubular. That's how we talked back then. My parents were like, all right, maybe for, like, Christmas we'll get you one. And then we went to buy one, and the dude at the store was like, hey, just so you know, there's been a study that basically says, like, using this could ruin your child's eyes and cause, like, debilitating cluster headaches that make them want to drive a nail into their frontal lobe. And my parents went, maybe not. So I dodged a bullet on that. I'm not getting the Virtual Boy. I was disappointed at the time, but got over it. Excuse me. Later, probably like less than, I don't know, 3 or 4 years later, my parents were like, hey, you know, they were relatively, well, I mean, they still are, relatively tech-savvy individuals, you know? So, like, it wasn't always me being like, I read in GamePro about this. Sometimes they came to me, and they're like, hey, have you heard of this thing? It's called the Sega Dreamcast. I don't really get it, but the games look cool. And beyond that, there's, like, a weird little thing that goes in the controller that's kind of like a memory card, but also might allow you to play some little miniature games on it. And they were thinking about getting me one. And it was the same thing as back in the day where you, I don't know, you could trust the salesperson perhaps a little bit more. Maybe we just got a really good one. The salesperson was like, just so you know, like, the game library for this is not really huge right now. So you might want to think about, you know, like, maybe waiting it out and seeing what happens. Like, if you're only going to get one console from this generation, you know, you might want to rethink your decision. Like, 6 months later, Sega's like, hey, we're stopping selling hardware forever, and the Dreamcast is dead. Now, a lot of great stuff on the Dreamcast. Power Stone, the original Shenmue, etc. Well, both Shenmues, I guess. You get the idea. But still, as a kid, feel like you dodge a bullet when you don't buy a console that ends up being discontinued like 3 months after you get it. Squeezy. Thank you. So I gotta consider that relatively useful. And then after that is, you know. You know what game I don't hear people talking about enough from my adolescence? Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Everyone respects Baldur's Gate 2, Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. But it's not like I never hear it, but I feel like I so rarely hear people giving Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance the streamlined Baldur's Gate experience for PlayStation 2 the credit that it deserves. I remember very little about the game, except having a surprisingly good control scheme for an action RPG that used the controller instead of, you know, a keyboard and mouse. And also, and this is not me trying to be gross, but I got that game when I was like 13. You know, when I bought my PS2, I got 2 games, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and FIFA 2002. I bought FIFA 2002 because it had that Gorillaz song in it, the remix of 192000. Get the cool, da 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 da, get the cool shoe shine. Still to this day, the definitive version of that song, in my opinion. I also purchased a Mad Catz controller because it was cheaper than the first party controller. And I also purchased a I think it was made by a company that was called like Intertech or something like that. It was a third-party memory card. It was like 4 times the space of the Sony one and half the price. And, you know, you're like, how could you go wrong? And then the way that you go wrong is that to use the memory card, you had to start the console, crack open... Oh, wait, I'm thinking of the original PlayStation now. I used to have a memory card where you had to start the console, While it was running, hit the open button to open the disc tray. While it was still spinning, pull out the disc, put in a proprietary disc that ran the memory card software, and then, you know, close the lid. And I think it was, basically, I think it was like accidentally, you were basically like stealing from Sony. You were getting around like some kind of copy protection that they were doing, but it was sold in Toys R Us. I think we want this, and I think we want this as well. And we will go to the cathedral. Dude, we're almost done with this run, actually. But I remember the enduring legacy of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance for me is that as a child, I remember it having a surprisingly good control scheme. And then secondarily, like the first female NPC you meet in the game has such a comically large bust that even as a child, me and my friend were like, come on. Like, in the throes of puberty, we were still like, be reasonable. This is absurd. Here, I'm gonna even, Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance, bartender, or barmaid. There you go, it auto-completes. It's ridiculous! I totally remember this. And I found a YouTube thumbnail. Jiggle physics. Let's play Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. And then there's like a dude with googly eyes looking at a rack. I told you, even as a child, I went, this is absurd. Let's play Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance Part 1. Her name is Alith Indara from the Forgotten Realms wiki. She's charismatic and charming. She was widely praised for her stew. She maintained an unofficial bank for her patrons. She only appeared in Dark Alliance. Apparently she's chaotic good. I don't know how you learn that from the game, but anyway. Well, that's a blast from the past. Still, great game. Maybe even better as a result of that. No comment. Man, that YouTube thumbnail. I should check. It might be Mathis's video, so I won't say anything else. Well, that's the state of YouTube these days. My face when the bobs are big. I get the... we don't have to go down that road. Well, what's the matter? You don't like digital boobs, NL? I didn't know you were a nerd. It's not like that. Don't call me a nerd. I'll say whatever you want. Heck yeah, brother. Anyway, the thing is, nobody talks about that game anymore, and they should, because it's good. Or maybe I just remember it being good, but either way, that's cool. Underappreciated. Well, I'm basically out of commentary here. I had a whole other bit. I'm going to save it for a future episode, but suffice to say, I'm dealing with a grocery store right now. Not like legally, I just mean like, you know, recreationally. They have been out of all of their spices, or like herbs, I should say, all of their herbs, for like the past 3 weeks. No cilantro, no mint, no dill, no parsley, etc., etc. But they've been selling, you know, live potted plant versions. And it's starting to cheese me off, because I'm starting to make you... Oh! What? No! No! What? Did I have to go to Shoal? What is wrong with me? With a powerful set of items, this is a rather easy challenge once you get used to Mom's knife. Oh, no kidding. It is somewhat easier to beat this challenge with the Polaroid than the negative. Yo, did I forget to take the Polaroid? This is where, like, I have to watch my own video. That would be hilarious. Okay, here we go. Everybody well. Okay, they won't let me watch more of it because it's still, like, recording simultaneously, but I guess I am a fool. Oh, wait. Unfortunately, the above strategy won't work in Afterbirth Plus. You are only given the choice of the negative, forcing you to progress through Shoal in the Dark Room. But was it the... Okay, despite being forced to take the negative, you can still go to the cathedral. However, once you've defeated Isaac and entered the chest, the run will simply end. There you go. So I'm a fool. I took the negative because that was the only option, and then, like an idiot, I still went to the cathedral and didn't even notice because I was too busy talking about the barmaid from Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Haha. Well, thanks for watching. We'll do that one again. At least it's an easy one. That's an embarrassing way to lose it. But for now, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. It's a great deal. Subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. See ya. Boom, boom.